Kien and Thu were not from this area. They both hailed from the central region, often called Zone 4 residents back in the day. They had moved here to build a life together shortly after getting married. Their hometown was a place where one would either be unlucky in the south or unlucky in the north. So, the couple drifted along with other villagers, following the numerous new factories that had sprung up recently. They left their hometown for the north, putting down roots for over a decade. Kien and Thu scrimped and saved, pinching pennies in every possible way to gather enough money to buy a house and settle down in this new land. Ms. Dinh's family had also decided to settle here long-term, especially after her mother passed away just under 100 days ago. But she believed her mother's spirit always followed her, watching over her youngest child, who had faced more hardships than his siblings. In a few dreams, she still saw her mother's presence in the house, a house built from earth and clay. After her mother's death, her siblings gradually drifted apart, not fighting over the ancestral land their parents left behind, but fearing the place where their umbilical cord was buried, their bond becoming ever more fragile. Leaving home, she left everything behind, taking only photos of her parents. Even though her husband's family was still there, sometimes life felt suffocating, and her husband wanted to return. However, visualizing the days ahead, the couple discussed it, eventually shaking their heads in refusal and deciding to stay put here. The couple and their 2 children still rented a room with concrete walls and a tiled roof. It was just the beginning of summer, and the heat was unbearable, like being inside a bread oven. The room remained the same, but with more people and more belongings, making it more cramped each day. That was summer. In winter, the sound of the wind howling across the fields was distinctly audible. Lying in that room, the couple felt hardly different from lying in the bone-chilling cold of the open field. Adults already suffered, but when their 2 children were born one after another, they bore the parents' hardship even more. 4 people squeezed into a tiny room, barely a few square meters, watching their children constantly falling ill. Especially in summer, the 2 children lay on the bed, perspiring profusely. Even 2 fans running at full speed couldn't alleviate the heat of the season. Kien turned to Thu, whispering, "Maybe we shouldn't have had them, then they wouldn't have to bear our suffering." But Thu smiled brightly and told her husband, "If you say that, then our parents and grandparents wouldn't have had us either. They struggled 100 times more than we do now. It's only with our generation that we have enough rice to eat. Our parents mostly ate corn and sweet potatoes, sometimes hungry, sometimes full. Our house was just a thatched hut with mud walls. Back then, only a few houses in the whole village had tiled roofs." Kien fell silent. "If it's too stifling, maybe we can pool a little money and find a more spacious, airy house music. Or if not, we can send the children back to our parents in the countryside to look after them. The countryside is open and cool, not cramped and suffocating like it is here." Kien sighed. "I want to be close to the children, that's why I brought them here to school. Now to send them back to their grandparents. What's the point? Besides, if we send them away from their parents, you remember how it used to be with ponds and all? Just thinking about it scares me. Our parents are old, their eyes are dim. They're not young anymore to be chasing after kids. If something happens, we'll regret it our whole lives. Sometimes I open the internet and read the news, and it makes my heart pound. Or you can find another house, see how that goes." Thu thought about it for a moment. "It doesn't need to be on the main road. In the village is fine too. We have a motorbike. We can also take the company shuttle." Kien still hesitated. "But a new house, the cost will be high. When will we have enough money to buy a house, not just rent? What if the children get sick? House prices fluctuate. They're one thing today, another tomorrow. Even if we work ourselves to the bone, we'll never catch up with rising land prices. If we find a spacious house, we can take on more work. Who knows, it might open up other opportunities for us. Are we just going to be factory workers, selling our labor our entire lives? The children are growing up. They can't live in this rented room forever." Kien nodded in agreement. "All right, let's decide that then. Starting tomorrow, I'll go look for a suitable place. Who knows, it might open up new opportunities for us. Whether it's new or not, I don't know, but I think it's time for us to change. We can't keep living like this forever." "Yes, I agree." As the sweltering heat bore down, the fan churned at full speed, but sweat still poured off the couple as if they'd just bathed. They tried to keep silent, lulling themselves to sleep. The next morning, before heading to work, Thu turned back and said softly, Today, please take the children and go look around. The sooner we find something, the better. A little more expensive is okay music. I'm so afraid of losing electricity again with the coming summer days. Don't mention our intention to move to anyone yet. When we find a house we like, then we'll talk about it. I know, Kien replied. I'll take the children to school and then go look for a place. What's the point of talking about it now? Thu immediately started her motorbike and left. It was just past 6 a.m., and every day repeated itself in the same boring way. Kien took the children to school, remembering his wife's words. Music, Kien began his search. He knew for sure that there were many for rent signs near his current place, but they were all overpriced. He had no choice but to venture into the villages beyond the industrial zone music, about 5 to 7 kilometers from where the couple worked. Perhaps he could find an empty house there that Thu would like. Kien thought the distance was acceptable for their commute, so he drove his motorbike music towards Van Tam village and the surrounding areas. Music. The couple had lived here for nearly 10 years, so Kien was familiar with the roads. Around 9 a.m., the sun began to beat down, soaking his shirt with sweat. Music, he rode into Van Tam village, just wandering aimlessly without a clear purpose. He'd been to Van Tam village a few times before. Compared to other villages in the area, Van Tam was still largely underdeveloped, stuck in poverty and backwardness. Unlike the villages near the highway or industrial parks, which already resembled small towns, Van Tam remained isolated. Who are you looking for, young man? Kien stopped his motorbike and sat down to order a sugarcane juice at a stall at the village entrance, nestled under an ancient banyan tree whose trunk had been split in half by a storm or lightning long ago. The old woman, over 70, placed a glass of sugarcane juice on the table, observing Kien's dazed face, as if he was searching for something. She spoke up to break the silence, as she and Kien were the only ones at the stall. Kien felt fortunate. At least he didn't have to initiate the conversation. Grandma, I'm looking for a rented house. Do you know if anyone in this village has a house for rent? Oh, a house for rent, you say? Up north, down south? In this Van Tam village, there aren't any houses for rent. But the old woman suddenly paused, reconfirming her statement to be sure. Ah, that's right, no one. Well, I don't know, you can go into the village and ask. It's been a long time since I've left the house. I live down south, there are many rented rooms there, but they're small and expensive. My family has young children. As he spoke, sweat poured down his forehead as if he'd just bathed. He picked up the plastic cup of sugarcane juice, took a long drink, and placed it back on the table, a few ice cubes clinking inside. Go inside, Dad, I'll watch the stall. The girl's voice startled Kien, and he turned around. She was probably around 30, close to his age. Kien couldn't tell if she was the old woman's daughter or daughter-in-law, urging the old woman to go inside. Before going in, the old woman reminded her, this young man needs to rent a house. See if there's any house for rent in our village and introduce him. Yes, Mom. The girl nodded, and the old woman slowly went inside. How much rent are you looking for? I need to rent for a family of 4. Cheaper is better, and it doesn't need to be too big. We'll definitely stay here long-term. My husband works in the industrial zone up north. Kien thought she was asking about his budget. The girl nodded and replied, let me show you this house, see if your family can live there. If you can, we'll talk details later. Kien paused slightly but then nodded in agreement. If you can help, that would be great. Having a place to live is good enough. There's no can or cannot. I just need a cool and airy place for my family. Living in a rented room in this summer heat is so hard on the children. Both my wife and I can't sleep all night. How can we have the strength to work like this? The girl was silent for a moment. Wait for me to tell my mother, then you can follow me. Kien nodded, watching the girl's back as she entered the house. He placed a 10,000 VND note under his sugarcane juice glass. When the girl returned, she told Kien, this house originally belonged to my 2 uncles, but after they passed away, their children moved to different places and rarely came back, except for death anniversaries. Out of 365 days a year, only a few ceremonial days see a gathering of family. If you can stay here, I'll call my eldest brother in Saigon and see what he thinks. My siblings are all quite well off, so a few million here or there is nothing to them. If it works out, they might even pay you extra. If that's the case, it would be wonderful. What could be better music? I'm so lucky to have met you today. The girl walked towards her motorbike parked by the banyan tree. The old woman came out of the house, and at that moment, a man over 60, wiping sweat from his face, walked in and sat down. "Ms. Dinh, may I have a sugarcane juice?" Kien looked back and said, "I've paid for that man's drink." Kien had barely finished speaking when the girl started her motorbike, forcing him to quickly rush after her, leaving Ms. Dinh and the man sitting in the yard. He could only hear a sigh, and Ms. Dinh's words carried faintly on the wind. "That young man is looking for a house to rent. Little Hai is taking him to Dai's house. I wonder if he'll be able to rent it." Kien rode his motorbike parallel to the girl. "My name is Kien. What's your name? I'd like to know so it's easier to address you." "My name is Hai. Is the old woman your birth mother or your mother-in-law?" "My birth mother, sir." Kien fell silent. The two motorbikes rode deeper into Phantom Village. "My Uncle Vu's house is quite big inside. My eldest brother used to have many plans here, but then family misfortunes kept happening, and he couldn't stay, so he left. As a result, my family has to come over and clean it up. Before, my mother was strong, and she used to come often. But now she's weak, and I also have endless work." "The water stall." "Oh no, the sugarcane juice stall. I just opened it to give my mother something to do, so people can come and chat with her, and she won't feel so bored or worry about trivial things. My husband and I work at the district office." "Ah, I see." Just as the conversation ended, Hai's motorbike slowed down in front of a heavy iron gate. This house is quite spacious. There's a row of houses downstairs where you can stay, and upstairs is for offerings. Kien nodded before Hai opened the iron gate and pushed her motorbike inside. Kien got off his bike, walked in after her, and then closed the gate. True to Hai's words, the house and garden were truly massive. Even in his wildest dreams, Kien had never imagined living in such a clean and beautiful space. He didn't understand what had happened to this house that its owners couldn't stay and had to abandon it for Hai to care for. The single-story house downstairs, a level 4 building, led up to a brick-paved courtyard and a modern 2-story house. Kien guessed the 2-story house was built about 5 years ago, while the level 4 house downstairs was older but still very sturdy. Both looked out onto a lush green-orange grove, with green oranges the size of rice bowls peeking out. A tall tree cast its shadow over the wellhead. The well water was covered in green moss, and a thriving beetle vine grew right next to it. The water dipper still rested on the well's edge. Kien thought to himself that if they rented, his family would only rent this level for house music, not the large house upstairs. He then walked to the well in the courtyard and peered down. Music, as he was deep in thought, Hai's voice introduced the house directly in front of them. "Before my eldest brother built the large house, my 2 uncles lived in this old house music. But later, my eldest brother wanted to tear it down, but my uncles didn't allow it, so it was left as is. Everything is still the same. You can move in right away." Hai opened the door of the downstairs house. Inside, dark, polished wooden cabinets, tables, and chairs stood. The items inside were still neatly arranged, as if someone still lived their music. Kien quickly left the well and went inside, looking around. "If my wife and I rent, we'll probably only rent the downstairs house music. The main house is too big, our family won't use all of it. Besides, we have young children. I'm afraid music, if something happens, I don't know how we'd compensate. I don't know how to look after them, they're very active. But this house is like my parents' house back home. It's the same. My wife will surely love it. To be honest, my mother passed away just 100 days ago. I want a slightly more spacious place to set up an altar for her. Upstairs, I'm afraid it won't be convenient." Kien stammered. Hai paused for a moment, thinking, then nodded. "In that case, it's easy. I'll talk to my eldest brother." She then looked up at the towering house above. Kien didn't forget to take out his phone and meticulously photograph everything. "I'm taking pictures to show my wife so she doesn't have to imagine it." Hai nodded in agreement, but her eyes were fixed on the moss-covered wellhead. There was a hidden secret at the bottom of the well that Hai dared not speak of. Her eyes held a hint of fear when she looked at it. "My family's well is quite old, isn't it, Hai? This well belongs to the ancestors of our village. It looks ordinary, but underneath, it's all brick. The sweet water for tea here is unparalleled. In the past, people from Phantom Village used to come here every day to fetch water. But then every house got its own drilled well and tap water, so people stopped coming. Only a few old-timers still came to ask for water to brew tea. But since my second uncle passed away, there's no one in the house, so the well has been abandoned. My eldest uncle didn't have the heart to fill it in, he just left it. After all, it's a family heirloom that has been with countless generations. It's a witness and also a soul. But since your family has children, I'll have someone make a sturdy iron cover for it. There's no tap water in the house, so you won't need the well water. Hai hesitated, not continuing, her eyes still fixed on the ancient, moss-covered well with the tall tree casting its shadow over it. Why go to all that trouble? I don't even like drinking tea. Maybe later. Kien raised his phone and tapped for a moment, then paused for a long time before the well. Shall we go upstairs? Hai asked, startling Kien, who turned around. No, if my eldest brother agrees to let my family rent the house downstairs, why would we go upstairs? If I rent it, and your eldest brother needs someone to tend to the incense and clean, my wife and I, can do it. My wife and I are factory workers, but we're very clean. Kien looked up at the main house and shook his head in refusal. So, I'll talk to my eldest brother. How much do you want for the house for your family and children? Just over $1 million, Hai. My wife and I are both factory workers, so we don't have much money, and with 2 children we have to save up. If it's too high, we can't afford it. The level 4 house has a kitchen, a storage room, and a well. Hai paused, then said, It's not about the money, I just want to clarify your family's situation. As for this side house, I'll call my eldest brother and see what he thinks. If he agrees, you and your family can stay here for free and help care for the house, garden, and tend to the incense for them. It's a win-win for me and for them. Kien nodded and replied, If that's the case, it would be great. I hope you can help me speak with him and let me know soon so I don't have to keep searching. Give me your phone number, and I'll call you back tonight. Yes, ma'am. Kien recited his number and Hai saved it. Done. Is there anything else you want to see? Kien looked up at the main house, its wooden door silently locked. He turned back to the mossy well, then looked up at the tree casting its shadow, then back at Hai, shaking his head slightly. No, Hai, this is enough, so shall we go back? Kien led the way and Hai followed. The two walked their motorbikes out of the gate. Before Hai locked the gate, the sun was already high overhead. Please let me know soon, so I don't have to waste time looking for other rented rooms. I want to settle down early this year because it's going to be too hot this summer. To be honest, I think the level 4 house you mentioned, where your 2 uncles lived, is very suitable for my family. The large house upstairs is not. Compared to my family, it's too big and unnecessary. I don't want to live in luxury. As Kien spoke, he sighed. Hai looked at him and nodded slightly. I'll call my brother tonight. I'll be waiting for your call. Kien looked through the gate at the house, stopping before the well with the tree casting its shadow, before starting his motorbike and riding off. Hai closed the gate, started her bike, and followed. Kien didn't go home right away. He checked a few other places, but none were better than Hai's house. He returned home, anxiously awaiting Hai's call as he dealt with dinner and picking up the children. By the time his wife finished work and came home, it was already dusk. How did it go with the house? Thu asked as her motorbike stopped outside the room. Kien sat shirtless outside the door, the fan whirring behind him. Their 2 young children, Mai, almost 8, and Thuin, about 6, were still playing in the yard with other children from the rental compound. Come inside, let's talk, Kien said, pulling her inside conspiratorially. Today, I found a few places. I think the one in Phan Tam Village is the most suitable for our family. Look at the pictures I took. Kien's finger scrolled across the phone screen. Other places are either too far or too expensive. They're really not suitable for our family, so I think this one is the most appropriate. Thu stopped at the picture of the level 4 house, the mossy well, and the tall tree casting its shadow. She nodded slowly, then asked, Knowing that, why didn't you just decide? Why ask me? What if they ask for too much rent, then what? Kien smiled. I think this level 4 house is suitable for our family. What are we waiting for? Kien picked up his phone and said, It's not her house, you know. She's just looking after it for her eldest brother in Saigon. We have to ask his opinion. She said she'd call back this evening, but I've been waiting and haven't heard anything yet. If they agree to let us rent, then great. Oh, so that's it. If not, we'll have to find another place. This summer heat is unbearable. Thu clicked her tongue, stood up, and went to get clothes for her shower. Kien held his phone, staring intently at the moss-covered well. He was waiting for Hai's call but didn't notice anything unusual. Why don't you call her back and ask if it's settled or not so we know what to do? Thu, her hair still wet, her towel draped around her neck, came out of the bathroom and urged her husband. The two children also ran in from the yard. Music, Kien checked the clock. It was only 7 p.m., so he hesitated. Let's just wait and see. What if they don't call and I just stay silent? Then it means they don't want to rent it out. Asking or saying anything would be pointless. Come on, let's eat dinner. Kien said, sounding a bit annoyed, but he reluctantly complied. Music. The four of them sat around the dinner table on the floor. The two fans ran at full speed, whirring, but sweat still poured off all four of them as if they'd bathed. They didn't know if the meal was good or not, but everyone was listless music and quickly finished their dinner. The two children finished eating and ran off to play with the other kids in the rental compound. Thu didn't want to keep them cooped up in that bread oven of a room. Only the two of them remained in the room music when Kien's phone rang. Kien quickly picked it up and Thu, sitting beside him, said, "It's her, answer it," Thu urged. Hai's voice came through the phone. My eldest brother agreed. We can talk tomorrow morning. For money, my brother just wants a symbolic amount. But if you need a contract, I can still draft one. Wonderful, that's great. I'll come over early tomorrow morning. Kien hung up and turned to his wife. It's probably all settled. Will you come with me tomorrow morning? Thu pondered for a moment, then nodded in agreement. Yes, I'll take the day off tomorrow to go with you. I think this is an important matter anyway. If we move into that house, I plan to set up an altar for my parents. What do you think? Kien paused for a moment, then quickly nodded. Of course, it's too cramped here. I don't think we have the space to set up an altar here. Thu, lost in thought, sat by the room door, looking out at the yard where her two children were playing with the neighborhood kids. Tomorrow, her family would experience many unexpected changes. It's late, kids. Time to come home. Kien poked his head out to call the two children, who reluctantly trooped back inside. Kien hoped his wife and he could soon escape this bread oven. It was 10 p.m. Kien and Thu lay on the floor. Kien turned to his wife, speaking over the whirring fan, but sweat still poured off them. Thu didn't reply, only soft breaths could be heard. She had already fallen deep asleep. Kien was a little startled because he had been talking to himself. Kien sighed softly, then slowly drifted into sleep. Then Kien's phone, placed next to him, suddenly lit up as if someone's finger had just swiped across the screen. The image of the tall tree, the mossy green well, glowed eerily, hiding something beneath the dark, bottomless well. Like from the deepest levels of hell, a pair of skeletal hands, just white bones, tried to claw their way out of the well. Don't you feel guilty doing this to their family? What if something happens? Ms. Dinh's gentle voice echoed in the dark. Music Hai turned around, sitting in front of the bare light bulb. I don't want to go in there again, Mother. Didn't you say, heaven helps those who help themselves and ghosts haunt those they choose? Maybe with their family's blessings, our family's well can be purified. If it means paying them extra, I'll pay it. Brother Dai is really strange. He knows that well killed people, yet he doesn't fill it up, leaving it like a trap for others. I'm afraid to go there alone, especially at the spiritual hour. Someone might call me and drag me down. I keep hearing a creaking sound, like someone scratching or stabbing desperately, but I can never tell where it's coming from. That house, that land, it's like it's haunted. Filling it in won't help. Leaving it won't help. It's already haunted, that land. It can't be changed. Ms. Dinh replied softly, as if speaking only to herself. Hai didn't hear what her mother said. That's why Brother Dai's family couldn't live there. Even after trying for a while, they had to leave it. They had to abandon a fortune to move to Saigon. If my two uncles died there and no one could live there, why didn't they just sell it? Ms. Dinh fell silent. Mother, when will this story finally end? Hai was silent for a moment, then said, I told Brother Dai, he said to do whatever makes it stable. I don't really understand what happened at that well. People spread rumors and the dead still die. Like Uncle Vu, Dai's father, luckily someone saw him, or he would have fallen in and died too. Now Auntie is also gone. Didn't you grow up in that house and then marry Father? Don't you know anything about that place, Mother? Hai tried to press her, but only silence replied. Tomorrow, when their family comes to rent, I'll call a shaman to seal it. I don't mean any harm, but I don't want to always feel like there's an invisible pair of eyes watching me." But as Hai looked towards the door, her mother's figure had already vanished. She stared blankly out the window. "Mother, mother." Thur's muffled cries echoed in the night. "Huh, what? What's wrong?" Kien was startled awake by her cries and the shaking of his shoulder. Her eyes were wide with panic. She quickly looked up at the bed. The fan whirred steadily in the night. The two children were sleeping soundly, clutching each other. She breathed a sigh of relief. "What's wrong, dear?" Kien got up, went to get a glass of water for his wife, and sat beside her. "I saw Mother," Thur sighed softly. "I thought something serious happened. Mom just passed away, you miss her, so it's normal to dream of her. Drink some water and go back to sleep," Kien urged, stroking her hair. The phone screen showed the picture of the tall tree, the well, and the red brick-paved ground. Green moss clung to the well's edge. Thur stared intently at her husband's phone screen. It was 2 a.m. "No, it's much scarier than that," she whispered to her husband. "I saw her standing at the well, crying helplessly, when a hand reached up from the well and dragged our two children down. Both you and I screamed in despair, but the children kept reaching towards it. Just then, you shook my shoulder, and I woke up." Kien was silent. "That's right. In my dream, the scene was exactly like the picture you took this morning. Could it be that Mother is trying to warn us not to move into that house?" Thur asked hesitantly. "Old folks used to say, dream of bad things, turn to good. I don't know, but I think we can just make an excuse to refuse tomorrow. We haven't paid them any money yet, so there's nothing to worry about. I don't agree. Tomorrow, you just act normal. I will too. Just call her and tell her, and then we'll find another opportunity." Thur raked her hair back. She sat with her back to the fan, but sweat still poured off her like she'd bathed. Deep down, she didn't want to live in such a cramped and suffocating environment forever. "Let's see tomorrow morning. It's late, go to sleep." Thur drained the glass of water and lay down beside her husband. After a while, the sky began to brighten, just like any other day. She woke up very early, prepared breakfast for her husband and children, and got ready for her shift at the factory. But this morning, she felt restless and anxious, unsure whether to go to work or stay home. It wasn't until Kien took the two children out for school that his question startled her. "Are you going to work today, or are you taking the day off to look at the house? If you take the day off after dropping the kids off, I'll come back and go with you. Otherwise, I'll go to the factory for a bit, then come back." Kien watched his wife nod, and the motorbike carrying the three of them drove out of sight, leaving her alone in the room, looking out at the other rooms. At this hour, adults were at work, children at school, so all the doors were silently closed music, just like her room. Thur sat by the door, waiting for Kien to return after dropping off the children. She ran her finger over the phone screen, music, touching her mother's face. For some reason, two streams of tears fell right onto her mother's face. The sound of Kien's motorbike turning into the alley brought her back to reality music, and she quickly wiped away her tears, not wanting her husband to see her crying when he returned. "Are you ready?" Music, Kien stopped his bike and asked. She stood up, nodded, locked the room door, and then sat behind her husband. The motorbike slowly rolled out of the gate. "Do you think they'll ask for a high price, honey?" "If it's around 2 million, we can rent it, but if it's higher, then no. But Hai said her brother in Saigon is quite well off, so money isn't really important to them. They just want someone to look after the house. If that's the case, why hasn't anyone rented it? Phan Tam Village is 7 kilometers from the industrial zone. Besides, their house is like that, so they must be careful about who they rent to. Later, when we get there, I'll ask Hai directly." Thur silently rode behind her husband. A moment later, the motorbike stopped in front of Hai's house. "Let's go in and meet her first, then go to the house later." The couple sat down at the sugarcane juice table right in front of the gate. Thur anxiously looked up at the banyan tree that had been split in half. "You're here, sir and madam." Hai came out of the house, smiling. "My wife," Kien pointed to Thur. Hai quickly placed 2 glasses of sugarcane juice in front of them. "Please drink, sir and madam. Let's get straight to business." Hai sat down cheerfully in front of them. "Last night, I talked to my eldest brother about your family's situation. If you only stay in the downstairs house, my brother won't charge you rent. Just keep the house clean and lived in for him, and occasionally clean and tend to the incense in the upstairs house to keep it warm. When he needs the house back, he'll give you 1 month's notice to prepare. But that probably won't happen for a long time because his family has no intention of returning to that side house. Brother Dai doesn't know when he'll retire, and he's still living in his main house, so you can rest assured. Hearing this, Kien and Thu looked at each other, startled and surprised. If that's the case, then that's great. Thu was still stunned by the unexpected offer, and the nightmare from last night gradually faded from her mind. When can we move in? Hai thought for a moment music, and then replied, if you can arrange it, you can move in right away. Just give me your IDs so I can register you. If you want, we can also make a contract. A contract isn't necessary. Consider it a favor to help our family live there for a while. It's truly good for us to help your brother look after the house. Hai looked at Kien and Thu, who nodded. She took their 2 IDs and handed them the keys. Now you can go inside. I'll come over this afternoon. I still have some things to do there. Thank you, Hai. Oh, and in our hometown, do we need to make any official documents or contracts? Hai looked at Thu and shook her head slightly. You don't need to, sir and madam. Whenever you're free, please buy some fruit and offer incense to my 2 uncles upstairs. I believe your family are good people and will take good care of that house. My eldest brother just wants someone to look after it and keep it warm. I have a lot of work, so I can't go there often. I should probably charge a few dollars, but I don't think it's necessary. All right, then my wife and I will go inside now. Hai nodded, watching Kien and Thu walk into Fan Tam village. All these scenes did not escape the watchful eyes of Ms. Dinh, who sat inside her house, intently observing the 3 people. I didn't think everything would be so easy. Thu sat behind her husband on the motorbike as it drove deeper into Fan Tam village. Kien turned back. Luckily, you didn't believe last night's dream. Thu spoke cautiously. Anyway, I'm still scared. You don't understand that feeling. Honestly, it's like everything is laid out in front of me, and saying I'm not scared or don't care isn't true. So why did you still go this morning? I couldn't bring myself to. I don't know either, but it's hard to explain. Maybe the dream was just a reminder. Kien was silent. The motorbike stopped in front of the gate. Here we are. Kien went in, opened the gate, and pushed his motorbike inside. Thu followed her husband. The house is so big, honey, and the garden, she exclaimed, looking up at the large house and then at the small, gray-tiled house below. But we'll be in the small house downstairs, dear. Please lock the gate. Thu locked the gate and walked in. As she entered the courtyard, her eyes immediately fell on the wellhead covered in green moss. The tall tree's shadow fell over it. Thu stood silently, gazing at the well for a long time as if hypnotized. She didn't know why, but she wanted to step closer and look down into the well, just to satisfy her curiosity about what secrets it held beneath its mouth. What are you looking at? Come on, dear. Kien's urging voice came as he stood in front of the level 4 house, its door open, waiting. Thu was startled. Right in the middle of the house was an old set of table and chairs. On the altar, there was only the altar itself, no incense burner, no photos. Kien thought perhaps they had moved everything upstairs to the new house. What do you think? Thu quickly inspected everything and then said, 2 bedrooms, 1 living room? I didn't even imagine this in my dream. Later, we need to buy 3 more incense burners, 1 large, 2 small. Remember that, honey? Kien smiled and replied, let the 2 girls share the room facing the well. Thu looked into that room, but in fact, all 3 rooms faced the well. It was just that the room her husband intended for the 2 girls was only a few steps from the window. Thu went into the room. A dark, polished wooden bed, as black as horn, was still intact. Next to it, a matching wooden wardrobe stood against the wall. The 2 kids are growing up now. It's time for them to have their own rooms. The girls can sleep with you here, and Tuan and I will sleep in the room next door. Kien paused for a moment, but then nodded in agreement. Thu, start cleaning up. I'll go back and inform the landlord to vacate the old room. Then I'll ask Tyne to bring the moving truck over. We can probably sleep here tonight. You staying there won't solve anything. Hai and her family are only coming this afternoon. The house arrangements with Hai are pretty much done. Thu looked at her husband with some hesitation. You go back and sort things out, honey. I'll stay here and clean. You tell Tyne to bring the stuff over, and we'll invite the neighbors over for a housewarming on Sunday. It'll be more spacious here. All right, then I'll go back now. Music. Oh, and when you go back, remember to stop by the market and buy 3 incense burners, 1 large and 2 small. If they sell sand for incense, buy that too. I'm afraid we won't find clean sand otherwise. Kien went out to the yard, turned back, and nodded. Thur watched until her husband's figure disappeared, then she began to clean the house, smiling contentedly music, with the new house her husband and she had just rented. As the sun reached the level of the tall tree in the well courtyard, for some reason, her eyes kept drifting in that direction. Suddenly, she looked at the dark, polished wooden cabinet which stood silently in the room. Music, she suddenly felt a chill down her spine. No, it's because I just came out of the house with Kien, so it feels this way. Thur tried to reassure herself and continued cleaning. But occasionally, she would still jump, looking at the dark, polished wooden cabinet, then startled, looking out at the well. The images from last night's dream resurfaced in her mind. A pair of skeletal hands, just white bones, trying to claw their way out of the dark, abyssal well like a pit of hell. She shook her head to clear it, picked up the feather duster, and carefully cleaned the remaining incense ashes on the altar. There was an altar for the ancestors of her husband's family, and in a small corner, she placed an altar for her birth parents. After all, Kien's parents were still alive, but her mother had died, and at the rented room, she couldn't set up an altar for her. Just as she was lost in thought, a knocking sound startled Thur and she turned around, searching. It was clearly the sound of someone's fingernails, or perhaps an animal's claws, scraping against the wooden door. Following that were soft thuds, very faint but distinct. Could it be a cat scratching? They didn't lock any cats here, did they? Who would knock at this hour? She thought to herself. But as she fell silent, the scratching sound also stopped, making it impossible for her to pinpoint its source. Perhaps it's just my imagination, wandering thoughts from my mind, she thought, looking around the house, unable to find any place a cat could be hiding. She tried to push away the thoughts in her head and continue her unfinished work. She knew it would be a while before Kien and Thu moved the furniture from the old rented room. Hai was scheduled to come around early afternoon. I wonder if there's anything else. The feather duster had just touched the altar when the scratching sound started again, making her stop. Her eyes fixed on the dark, limewood cabinet standing silently in the corner of the room. The sound seemed to be coming from there. As before, when she turned, the creaking sound ceased. Thur stared intently at the cabinet. She slowly approached it, standing before its two dark, polished wooden doors. She bit her lip, gathering all her courage, and suddenly reached out to open both cabinet doors. But the inside of the cabinet was completely empty. She let out a silent sigh of relief, but just as she turned her head by the moss-covered well, a pair of skeletal hands, just white bones, tried to reach up but were suddenly struck by an invisible force, shattered and fell. She cried out, almost falling to the ground. In front of her was a sun-drenched courtyard. At the well, Thur returned to her senses. Only a gust of wind from outside blew in, making the cabinet doors creak shut repeatedly. Could this house be haunted? Thur's face turned pale. She immediately called her husband. On the phone, Kien's voice was muffled as he struggled with moving things. "What's wrong, dear? I'm just getting a few things done." "Are you vacating the room? What things?" "Yes, is something wrong, dear?" Thur tried to sound calm. "Oh, nothing. I just wanted to ask if the landlord said anything, since we're leaving so suddenly." "He didn't say anything. It was sudden, but he said he was happy for our family. We're moving out and someone else is moving in right away. The room won't be empty for a single day. He even said he'd come over to visit when everything's settled. I'm almost done. Thu will be over in about 30 minutes. Oh, it's all done. Remember to stop by the market and buy." "I remember. Don't keep reminding me about that. I bought them already, okay?" Kien hung up. Thur held the phone in her hand, standing in the middle of the room, looking out at the well. Occasionally, she would turn to look at the wide-open cabinet doors. The strange sounds had vanished. Perhaps everything I just saw was just an illusion, Thur thought to herself. The sound of a truck driving into the alley brought her back to reality. A small pickup truck slowly rolled into the yard. Thu and Kien got out of the truck. "What are you doing standing there, dear?" Kien's voice startled her. Thur rushed down to the courtyard. Kien slapped Thu on the shoulder. "You guys are living here now? It was cramped and hot out there. This place is cool. I even feel a bit chilly." Thu went inside, looking around. "It must be cool here in the summer. You guys are so good at finding places." "We just happened to find it by chance. The owner is from the south, that's why they left it empty. Renting it is like helping them look after the house." Kien replied as he helped Tyne unload things from the truck and carry them into the house. Music. Are there any other things left at the old place? Just a few odds and ends. I'll go get them later or you can go. I saw a few things here too, so I left them for the next tenant to use. Kien stood up and paid Tyne. Thanks, buddy. Come over for a drink sometime. Sure. Tyne's truck slowly rolled out of the yard. Kien and Thu were now alone in the house. Kien saw the cabinet doors wide open, which surprised him. Why are the cabinet doors open like that? And what's this paper? Thu looked at it. It was an old charm. But then she was startled to see a yellow charm, almost torn and tattered, on the cabinet wall. However, a piece about the size of her palm was still intact. I opened it to clean, since we're putting clothes in there anyway, so I didn't close it. Let me see. Why would someone stick it here? She held the piece of paper in her hand, pondering. The folded paper was placed inside the cabinet. Let me ask Hai about it tonight. Something isn't right about this house. Kien glanced at the torn charm but didn't ask further. He placed 3 ceramic incense burners and a bag of sand on the table. Inside the bag were 3 more yellow charms, folded into an arrow shape, hidden within the sand. The vendor at the market gave these to me. He said to put them at the bottom of the incense burners before pouring in the sand. Thu carefully placed the 3 charms at the bottom of the incense burners, then poured the sand on top. She lit a red candle. She turned to Kien and said, "Go fetch 3 cups of water, honey." Kien carried 3 ceramic cups, turning them over and over, unsure where to get the water. He walked to the mossy well. While waiting, Thu tidied and arranged some things that were still scattered around the house. The aluminum dipper plunged into the dark, deep well, making a clanging sound as it hit something very hard. It wasn't the sound of hitting water. Kien was also surprised by the echoing sound. He peered down, only to see ripples in the dark, deep water. In the darkness, the dipper filled music with clear water. Kien lifted the dipper to the well's edge, filled the 3 cups with water music, and then cupped his hand to drink. The well water was truly sweet and cool music. No wonder they didn't fill it, he muttered to himself, then carried the 3 cups of water into the house. However, as Kien walked a few steps in the dark, shimmering water, a head slowly emerged from the surface, with long, dark, endless hair. A pair of skeletal hands, just white bones, gripped the well's edge, their 2 deep, dark eye sockets staring into the house. The well water is really sweet, I have to admit, just like Hai said. No wonder they didn't fill it in, it's even sweeter than rainwater. Using this to make tea would be wonderful. Thu was startled and asked, "Are you drinking that? Don't drink that, it's asking for trouble. Go fetch new water." I fetched it and then drank it. A little leftover water won't hurt, just relax. It's like eating leftovers from our parents, what's wrong with that? Thu hesitated, but Kien casually dismissed it. You finish cleaning the house, dear. I'm going to pick up the children. I'll stop by the market to buy some things for the housewarming and some offerings for the altar. Next time, don't do that. It's asking for trouble, who does that? I know, I'm going to pick up the children now. Kien nodded, walked out to the yard, got on his motorbike and rode off. It was early summer, and the sun was blazing. Thu silently watched her husband's figure disappear. She placed the 3 cups of water in the middle of the altar. Beside them, in the corner, was a picture of her mother looking towards the well. She lit 9 incense sticks, placing them evenly in the 3 incense burners, and bowed 3 times before tidying her husband's and children's clothes and putting them into the dark, polished wooden cabinet. However, she didn't notice that the color of the water in the cups on the altar had already turned blood red. I'm going to Brother Dai's now. Hai rode her motorbike out of the gate. Ms. Dinh was sitting right there. Are you really going to seal this well? Hai was surprised, but stopped and turned to look at her mother. I believe their family are good people. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. I think if it's within my ability, if I can do something for their family, I'll try my best. It can also be seen as accumulating some good karma for my children and grandchildren later. Although I don't know what happened at that well, why my 2 uncles died there, and why Brother Dai couldn't live there and had to leave. I think Mother is the only one who knows this secret. If Dai doesn't say anything, then I won't force it. Ms. Dinh sat silently. Hai also remained silent, waiting for her mother to speak, but she said nothing. I'm leaving now. Hai got on her bike, disappointed, and rode off. Ms. Dinh's dull eyes watched Hai's figure disappear into the village. You shouldn't do that. It won't solve anything. Iron bars cannot imprison a soul. That woman's soul will break free. It cannot be contained. If evil is done, no matter how much you try to hide, you cannot escape. Ms. Dinh's voice whispered softly. Hai arrived at Kien's house not alone. She brought a team of welders with their equipment, which surprised Kien's wife and children greatly. What's going on, Hai? Kien asked, standing in front of the door. Hai stood in the yard, looking at Kien and Thu. You and your wife have young children, so I want to have someone weld the well shut, just in case something unfortunate happens. You can use the village's tap water. Hai's suggestion sent a chill down Thu's spine. The house my husband and I rented really has problems. If there were no problems, why would she do this? No one has ever sealed the well before. You don't have to worry so much. My 2 children are grown up. The well is so high, how could they climb up and jump down? You're overthinking it. Our kids aren't that mischievous. And earlier, I scooped a few cups of water for the altar, and the water was very sweet. I think our family will use this well. The village water all smells of chlorine. Hai turned to the welder, hesitating. If you insist, then all right. Hai's eyes looked up, meeting Thu's anxious and fearful gaze. All right then, if there's nothing else, I'll excuse myself. I'll drop off your IDs when I pass by tomorrow to work. Let's go home now. Music Hai turned to urge the welder. While Thu stood frozen as if in a trance, Hai and the welder, carrying their tools, drove their vehicles out of the gate. Honey, don't you think something suspicious is going on here? Why does Hai have to do this? Kien turned to her, sighing. What do you mean? What's going on? Ever since I came here, I've felt uneasy, restless, and anxious. When you went to the old house, I stayed here alone. She silently looked at her 2 children, not daring to continue. If anything happens, our family still has to stay here. We can't move anywhere else. Come on, let's go inside and eat dinner. Don't worry about it. You'll just make the whole family worried too. We've just moved to a new place and are still getting used to it, that's all. I feel like ever since we came here, you've just been worrying. Or maybe because the opportunity came too easily, you think people are trying to trick us. It's not that, but I don't know how to explain it to you, husband. If I told Kien what happened earlier, Kien would just dismiss it. Now, since I'm the one who agreed, Kien moved here. It's hard to say anything now. Thu looked at the well in front of her, sighed, and walked into the house. In contrast, her husband Kien seemed completely at ease, having accomplished his task. They had a spacious, airy place to live, and they no longer had to worry about monthly rent. Thu still carried an invisible fear, especially when she inadvertently stared at the 2 dark cabinet doors. When she looked out at the well, its edges were covered in green moss. She didn't understand why, even in the blazing midday summer sun, the moss on the well's edge was so green. Her husband and wife want to seal the well. Hai got off her motorbike and sat down at the table right in front of the gate, directing the electric fans straight at herself, then turned to Ms. Dinh. Their doing that won't solve anything. It might even bring them bad luck. Better to do nothing. What's the point of exaggerating things when there's nothing wrong? But there is something wrong there. Can't you tell me, your own mother, who is old and close to death, what's going on? What else is there to hide? What are you afraid of? Do you want me to die and take all the secrets to the grave, like Uncle and Auntie did? Ms. Dinh was about to say something, but Hai got up angrily and stomped into the house, leaving behind a blank stare. In the house, through the window, she could hear the voices of her 2 children. In the well courtyard, Kien was busily pouring water from the aluminum kettle. You 2 are not to wander near this well, understood? The children, playing with their phones on the bed, nodded obediently to their mother music. But her eyes were still full of worry as she looked out at the well in the middle of the day. Kien carried the kettle into the kitchen to make tea. Kien sat on the wooden table in the living room, constantly sighing with satisfaction as he brought the warm tea to his lips. This kind of tea, brewed with this well water, tastes completely different. Thu just clicked her tongue. For some reason, her anxious eyes never left the well until dusk. Nothing special happened. Music. She breathed a sigh of relief, as if 1,000 burdens had been lifted from her heart. She also believed that everything she had seen was just an illusion, her imagination. Lock the door, dear, Kien asked, but his hand was already latching the wooden bolt, securing the door. Let's go to bed early, we're all so tired today. Thu urged the 2 children, who were hunched over their desks, still in their clothes, to put their fingers over their mouths and go to bed first. Go to sleep, you 2. From tonight on, Mai will sleep in the room with Mother, and Tuan will sleep outside on the floor with Father. The two children didn't ask anything further. Mai slowly got up and went into her mother's room. The light was off, but Tuin still sat silently, looking towards the well. He hadn't gone to bed with his father yet, his eyes intently fixed on the dark, inky well courtyard. A dark shadow slowly emerged from the well. The woman with long, waist-length hair turned her face towards the boy sitting at the desk. "Come out to mother, my child," the woman's whispered voice echoed in the night. Following that, her arms reached out, waiting. The boy's eyes showed no fear. Perhaps his eyes were shining with anticipation, and his lips murmured, "Mother, mother." If not for the window separating them, he probably would have run to the well to the woman in white with long, flowing hair, reaching out and waiting. The wooden bolt Kien had just secured was unlatched by the boy, and the wooden door slowly opened. The boy rushed towards the well. "Mother, mother!" His voice echoed in the night, startling Thur, who was sound asleep in the room, awake. "Tuin, Tuin!" Thur rushed out of the house. The main door was wide open. She was like a madwoman, running into the yard, calling her son's name. The small boy, like a sleepwalker, slowly approached the well. The woman in white with endless long hair was reaching out, waiting. "Please, please don't take my child," Thur screamed, rushing forward, but the boy was already close to the well's edge. When Kien rushed out to the yard, the woman's shadow had vanished. "Are you two all right?" Now Kien saw it too. Thur hugged Tuin tightly in her arms, her eyes filled with tears, making Kien truly flustered. The two of them helped each other back into the house, leaving Kien alone in the yard. He still strained his eyes, looking at the dark, deep well, like the deepest level of hell. "This is what happened at noon today. I called you, intending not to move here, but it was too late." The whole family sat on the sofa in the living room. Thur still clutched Tuin tightly, afraid he would slip from her grasp. Kien lit a few incense sticks on the altar. "What do we do now? Should we move back to the old rented room?" Thur asked, but then shook her head. "We already moved out, why go back there? Someone else just moved in right after we left. When we first came to this house, I suspected why Hai lied to us. If I hadn't woken up tonight, what would have happened to our child? I was so scared." Thur's eyes looked dull, and she shook her head in despair. "That wasn't kindness to help others, it was an evil intent. That place drives people crazy." "If you say that, then," Kien shook his head. "I don't think Hai is that kind of person. Maybe she doesn't even know about this. If she doesn't know, then why did she hire someone to seal the well this afternoon? I'll call her and get to the bottom of this." He was about to call her on the phone in his hand, but Thur hesitated. "No, let's wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll go to her house and talk to her directly. We won't move somewhere else." "Are you still planning to stay here?" Kien asked his wife in surprise. "Tomorrow, I think we're just like her. I think there's some injustice or grievance that hasn't been resolved, and it's still lingering in this world. I hear the desperate call for children, just like every time I call Mai and Tuin. Let's go to sleep, it's very late. I'll lock the door securely. You three girls can sleep together. I'll sleep out here alone." "Are you sure?" "It's fine, I'm strong. No ghosts or spirits can get me. Don't talk nonsense about ghosts and spirits, it's not a joke. If you say it, you'll pay the price." Kien stood up, not only latching the door but also picking up a rope to tie it securely before Thur took the two children into the room. Kien didn't go to sleep right away. He sat back down at the desk where Tuin had been sitting, his eyes fixed on the well, as if waiting for the woman to appear. "Go to sleep, honey. What are you still looking at out there?" Kien stood up and went to bed, tossing and turning for a long time before finally falling asleep. Occasionally, there were sounds of dogs barking, along with the sound of a lullaby. The desperate call for a child in the night drifted on the wind. "Last night, both my wife and I saw that woman. If my wife hadn't rushed out and hugged the boy, he probably would have been dragged down the well." Kien sat in the courtyard, looking at Ms. Dinh, then at Hai, then at Huang, hesitating. The barking of dogs, the sound of the lullaby, and the desperate call for a child in the night echoed on the wind. "It's like my family can't live here. We can guard against people, but how do you guard against ghosts? My wife and I want to know clearly who the vengeful spirit of the woman by the well is. I think only when we know the cause can we find a solution. If we leave things as they are, not only can my wife and I not live in peace, but you, Hai, and others nearby will also find it hard to live peacefully. If you accidentally see it, you might not be drowned at the bottom of the well, but you'll certainly die of a heart attack." Hai looked at Ms. Dinh, startled, waiting. Now you see, Mother, what exactly happened at Brother Dai's house at that well? Then Hai turned to Kien and Thu, quickly explaining, honestly, we don't know the full story of what happened in that house. But some time ago, it's true that something happened. My two uncles died right by the well, also in the summer. But everyone just thought it was a sudden death, but Brother Dai had other suspicions. He couldn't live there, so he left the house and went to Saigon, leaving my husband and me to take care of it. Every time I went to that house, I felt a chill, perhaps a premonition of my uncle's deaths. It wasn't until you and your wife came with your young children that I suggested welding the well shut, just to prevent any unfortunate incidents. Besides that, I had no other intention. I also heard people say, heaven helps those who help themselves, and ghosts haunt those they choose. I thought perhaps your family wouldn't see the things we saw. Kien and Thu listened silently as Hai explained. They believed what she said. Ms. Dinh, who had been listening to Kien and Thu, sat still as an emotionless stone statue. Music, she had a child. The three of them waited for Ms. Dinh's every word, and the more she hesitated, the more impatient Hai became. Back then, there were two houses on that piece of land, Music. The two families were blood relatives. Mother was the youngest child, so she witnessed everything. Almost no one else knew. Music, those who knew didn't speak. They took all their secrets to their graves. Hai was truly surprised to hear Ms. Dinh's words. Wasn't that land always just Uncle Vu's family's? Ms. Dinh shook her head. It was Music, a tragic story no one wanted to remember. Even few villagers in Phan Tam knew about it, Music. Because those who were alive back then thought that Ms. Sun and her child had gone to the mountains with her husband, Mr. Phuoc, and would never return to Phan Tam village, Music. But in reality, they didn't go anywhere. They died on this very land. The three others were silent. They are still there. Even now, their souls, mother and child, are still there, unable to find peace. But until now, I haven't been able to clarify the situation so their souls can find some comfort. Mother, what exactly happened? You want to know clearly? That woman, Ms. Sun, was Mr. Phuoc's wife, my maternal grandfather's younger brother. That's right. Because of greed, the dead suffered, and the living suffered even more. All those grudges from generations ago still linger on this land. Perhaps thanks to the blessings of our maternal grandparents, that house still stands today. Ms. Dinh's dull eyes reminisced about the distant past, when she was the same age as Tuan now. She was with her parents, Mr. Kien and Mrs. Huang, sitting in their thatched hut opposite the brick house on the old land. Both houses looked out onto the well, just as it is today. Why hasn't Mr. Phuoc returned to pick up Ms. Sun and her child? Mr. Kien looked at Ms. Sun, the woman with long, black hair down to her waist, sitting and hugging her son, about 10 years old. Before turning back to his wife, he said, "It's late. Sooner or later, he'll come back for her and the child, and then that house and all the land will belong to us. I don't think my parents were fair at all. My younger brother got the tiled house, and I have to live in a thatched hut with mud walls." Mrs. Huang, holding little Dinh in her arms, sighed and told her husband, "Have you seen any other house like this in the whole village, in the whole region? Wasn't it your idea to divide it like that? You wanted a big garden, so letting them have the house was fair. You got what you wanted, and now you regret it so much?" Mrs. Huang quickly tried to explain, "It's not that I didn't expect it. Didn't they say they would leave and give the house to us? But we waited and waited, and they just vanished into the mountains, only to die there. Who knows if he's even safe? It's been half a year and there's no news. Sometimes I want to brave it and go up the mountain to see how they are. These past few days, I've been so worried. My heart is burning as if it's on fire. My sister-in-law might have met with misfortune, but we don't have much to spare." Mrs. Huang silently shared her husband's worries and looked at their own thatched hut with mud walls. Their children were small, poor, and hungry. Ms. Sun and her child lived in a decent house, but it wasn't much better. "If he comes back and takes Ms. Sun away, then that house will be left for our family, right? Mr. Phuoc said so last time, but we also need to arrange some capital for them to take with them. After all, it's our parents' legacy. If our family takes everything and leaves nothing for him, wouldn't that be like buying it? You know very well that this land is ours to buy. Let's wait a bit longer to see if he comes back, then we'll decide. It's hard to say anything if he's not home. And don't be too demanding with her because of food. He had to leave everything and go to the mountains. It's not a comfortable life." Mrs. Huang silently looked out at the veranda. Ms. Sun and her child were sitting there, looking out the door, waiting for her husband's return. "I'm going to look for Mr. Phuoc." Ms. Sun asked her husband in surprise. Mr. Quien looked at Ms. Sun and nodded. In his hand, he held Dinh, standing in front of the veranda. These past few days, I've been dreaming of him. I think something bad must have happened. Do you know where he is? Ms. Sun said sorrowfully. I won't hide anything from you. These past few days, my heart has been burning like fire, but I didn't dare tell you. I'm afraid. Ms. Sun looked at the thatched hut, implicitly referring to her sister-in-law. I understand, but your sister-in-law isn't that bad. When I leave, I'll go early. I'll let you and the child know so you can rest assured. Yes, I'm going home now. The two, father and daughter, walked hand in hand back to their thatched hut, but little Dinh's eyes still watched Ms. Sun and her child sitting on the veranda. Her eyes, filled with hope and expectation, gleamed. The next morning, Mr. Quien left again. The two women and their small children stood at the entrance, watching him until his figure completely disappeared. Mrs. Huang turned back to Ms. Sun, past the mossy green well, and looked towards the thatched hut with an extremely strange gaze. Under the blazing midday sun, Mrs. Huang seemed to be determined to do something. Mr. Quien has been gone for a week. I wonder if he'll bring Mr. Phuoc back. I'm so worried. Ms. Sun was sitting in the well courtyard, washing clothes for her two children. Seeing Mrs. Huang bring out a basket of vegetables, she immediately said. In contrast to Ms. Sun's eagerness, Mrs. Huang immediately poured a basin of cold water over her sister-in-law's head as she was bending down to fetch water from the well. Sister, I won't do that. What did you say? Ms. Sun turned her head back. I'll teach you to meet your husband. Before Ms. Sun could even react, Mrs. Huang wrapped her arms around her sister-in-law's waist and pushed her head down into the well. Ms. Sun only managed a single scream, her hands flailing helplessly against the well's edge. Her whole body fell into the void, struggling in the dark abyss. The cursing sound, the gurgling of water from the bottom of the well, echoed up. All of Mrs. Huang's actions did not escape Dinh, the little girl and Ms. Sun's child, who witnessed their mother's actions towards their poor aunt. Dinh tried to cover the child's mouth, but he still ran to the well courtyard. Dinh also ran after him. Mama, Mama, the boy screamed, looking down into the deep, dark abyss. Auntie, you killed my mother, you threw her down, you're a devil, the boy cried and rushed to scratch and claw at Mrs. Huang. That inhumane woman grabbed the boy's arm and threw him down the well after his mother. But little Dinh grabbed Mrs. Huang's leg, screaming and crying. Mother, don't kill him, the girl cried incessantly, her face wet with tears. Perhaps because Mrs. Huang felt a pang of conscience or fear, she stopped. Be quiet, you, I'm not killing him. Go on, stop crying. Auntie, you're a devil? Auntie killed my mother? The boy's face was pale with fear, but his eyes still stared directly into hers, cursing. Mrs. Huang pondered for a moment, then without a word, dragged the boy into the house. If I hear one more curse from you, I'll throw you down the well with your mother. As she tied the boy up, her eyes narrowed, staring into his face, silently threatening him. Little Dinh stood outside on the veranda, her eyes wide with fear. Nothing will happen. Mother won't kill him. She turned to reprimand the little girl. You just need to be quiet. Auntie is a devil. Auntie killed my mother. When my father comes back, he'll throw your whole family down the well. This time, unable to suppress her rage, Mrs. Huang slapped the boy across the face music. In fear, little Dinh stood up, intending to close the door. Go away. If you keep begging for him, I'll kill you too. Mrs. Huang screamed at the little girl. The wooden door slowly closed as the two sisters tearfully looked at each other before the wooden door music shut. Father, the devil killed mother. The boys crying and cursing echoed from inside the house as Mrs. Huang dragged the crying girl to her own house as dusk began to fall. Music little Dinh turned back, but her hand pulled Mrs. Huang towards the house. The boys crying and cursing still echoed incessantly. Eat, don't cry anymore. Little Dinh carried a bowl of rice, squeezed through the wooden door, and went into the boy's house. The boy looked at her, sobbing uncontrollably. Sister, she's so cruel. The girl didn't speak but tried to feed the poor child. However, he didn't eat but shook his head vehemently. Go away, I hate you. Your whole family are venomous snakes. Little Dinh quietly obeyed the boy's sister-in-law in helplessness. You stupid girl, you're bringing food to him and sleeping here listening to his ravings? Come home now. Mrs. Huang stood right behind the girl, yelling harshly. She pulled the girl's arm, dragging her out. The bowl of rice on the floor scattered everywhere. Mother, what are you doing? Go home, you're a venomous snake. The boy's voice echoed from inside the house again, infuriating Mrs. Huang. She slapped the girl's hand, went back into the house, and forcefully stuffed a piece of cloth into the boy's mouth. Mrs. Huang, are you home?" Mrs. Huang was startled, looking at the boy, then at the cabinet opposite. She quickly dragged him into a drawer, pushed him inside, closed the door, and tidied her hair, trying to appear nonchalant as she went outside. Inside the house, sounds of struggling, muffled cries, and fingernails scratching wood loudly and continuously echoed. The sounds gradually grew faint, then stopped completely. "Did you find Mr. Fuok?" The next morning, Mr. Kien returned, his face sad, distraught, and looking at his wife. He shook his head. "They said he went missing in the mountains and will never return." In contrast to her husband's sorrow, Mrs. Huang secretly rejoiced, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders. So, from now on, there's nothing to worry about. Everything went exactly as she wished. "Where are Miss Sun and Co? The house is so empty and quiet when I come home now." Mr. Quien's worried voice made Mrs. Huang jump, somewhat flustered. "The older kids went with their grandfather yesterday afternoon." He turned to look at little Dinh, her eyes swollen. "What's wrong? I was only gone for a few days. What happened at home? Where are Miss Sun and her child?" Mr. Kien asked sternly. The little girl clutched her father and burst into tears. "Miss Sun is dead." "What? And Co?" Mr. Kien looked at Mrs. Huang, startled, and asked. Her hands and feet were fumbling, she didn't know what to say. "What did you do to them?" Mr. Kien didn't wait for his wife to explain. He jumped up and rushed to his sister-in-law's house. "Son, Co," little Dinh ran after him. "He's in the cabinet," she said, trembling. Mr. Quien's eyes trembled as he looked at the dark wooden cabinet doors. "Quien, my child?" In response to his voice was a chilling silence. He looked at his wife, searching, but she just bowed her head, silently waiting. He tried to compose himself and pulled the wooden table that was blocking the cabinet doors. The cabinet doors immediately swung open. The boy fell onto the ground, his hands still tied, his 10 fingers scratching at the cabinet, tearing off his nails. Now his hands were dark and bruised. Music. Co, my child." He patted his face, but he knew very well that the boy's body was already cold and stiff. He was dead, but his eyes were still open. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly at him, filled with hatred. He dared not look at the boy's face and turned to his wife. "What did you do to them? Why did you act so cruelly towards him? He's just a child. Just a child, do you understand? Your heart is not as cruel as Thur's. Thur didn't intend to kill him." He let go of the boy. "And where is Miss Sun?" His eyes glared at his wife, even though she tried to find reasons to justify her cruel actions. "Where is Miss Sun?" "Outside at the well," she stammered. He stood up and quickly walked with the little girl following him to the well. He stood at the wellhead and looked down, clearly seeing Miss Sun's hair flowing at the bottom of the well. He turned back to his wife, his eyes filled with tears. "You devil, you didn't kill me down this well too?" Her eyes were filled with tears, shaking her head in despair. "I did such a heartless, inhumane thing, but I did it all for this house. If you don't believe me, I'll go back to the banyan tree. Do whatever you want." He went to the gate and stood there, thinking, music. "I'll go down and get Sun, and then we'll settle things with you. If I die at the bottom of the well, it will be my way of repaying my debt to them. I have no regrets." He finished speaking, then unwound the rope from around his waist, tied one end to the banyan tree, and lowered himself into the deep, dark well. He carefully tied the rope around Miss Sun's body. He looked up at the wellhead and, pulling on the rope, dragged Miss Sun's body up. He stood at the wellhead, shaking his head. Mr. Kien knelt, sobbing uncontrollably beside his sister-in-law's body. His hands trembled as he reached up to close her eyes. His head pounded up and down as if chopping wood. "It's all my fault. Everything is my fault. I deserve to die." Mrs. Huang reached out to stop her husband from hitting himself. "You devil, I will turn you over to the villagers of Fan Tam to deal with as they see fit." His eyes were filled with extreme rage as he looked at Mrs. Huang, who was clutching little Dinh. The little girl burst into tears, not knowing if it was out of fear or sorrow for Miss Sun's body, or for her father struggling beside his sister-in-law's body, or because of her mother's sudden hug. She just knelt, her eyes filled with tears, looking at her husband, shaking her head in despair. "Do you want 4 deaths in this house? How will our children live after this?" In silence, he looked at his wife and then said again, "Devil, you truly are a devil. You're no longer human." He laughed maniacally. Miss Sun's and her child's bodies were loaded onto a ox cart, covered with a mat, and driven away into the night, disappearing from little Dinh's sight. From then on, Mr. Quien turned to alcohol. A few years later, he died. Mrs. Huang went insane and also died right in that well courtyard. Music. Ms. Dinh's voice recounted, full of emotion. No one knows about the graves of the mother and child. Ms. Dinh shook her head. I don't remember the exact date. The charm in the cabinet was brought back by her to protect the cabinet from evil, but she shook her head and sighed. It's all the village's fault, abandoning them, letting all that resentment linger. She turned to Kien and Thu. That's the story. If you feel you can stay here, then good. Otherwise, I'll give you a little money to help you move somewhere else. Kien looked at Thu, waiting. What do you think, dear? Music. Thu sat there, feeling that after almost 100 years, the same tragedy was repeating itself. I will stay, but on the 15th day of the 7th lunar month, I want to hold a ceremony for Ms. Sun and her child and all those who lived here. Ms. Dinh nodded in agreement. Then let me lend a hand. Thu smiled at Hai. Thu stood before the small offering table with only joss paper and gold leaf in the courtyard. She burned the joss paper, and the flames flared up in the night, reaching towards the well. She then threw the charm from the cabinet into the golden flames. The joss paper had turned to ash. Suddenly, a gentle breeze blew through the night, carrying the embers into the banyan tree. Both Kien and Thu stood silently in the courtyard, but the woman with flowing hair reached out her arms, hugging her child tightly, from the veranda to the banyan tree. Music.